Hello and welcome to yesterday's Airlines. In this video we're going to be talking about the JAL Collection from Agostini. Now this collection is a series of magazines which come with models which has been being produced in Japan for a couple of years now, and previously I'd largely ignored them, and that has changed because of this association that appears to exist between this Agostini JAL Collection and a manufacturer called Jet Hut, which I have been put onto by ngmodels as a new low-cost brand for 400 scale models, and it does appear that Jet Hut make the models for this JAL Collection, which makes me want to take a closer look at the JAL Collection models. So I've been searching around trying to find these JAL Collection models, which isn't actually that easy because the prices with the magazines in Japan are outrageous. However, if you can get access to the Chinese market, then you can find these models for very cheap prices. And I've been able to search around Taobao and acquire a selection of these models which are on their way to the hangar. And some of them have already arrived, and I've got 8 or 9 currently. And I'm gradually working my way through taking a look at the many different molds which this JAL Collection uses to see kind of what they look like, what sort of thing we might be able to expect from Jet Hut in the future if indeed they turn into a new manufacturer and they're producing low-end 400 scale models using these molds. So in this series of videos I'm going to be taking a look through the different molds that I've been able to acquire and see what I think of those in comparison to other 400 scale models of a similar type. Now obviously these are supposed to be low-end, cheap 400 scale models. They don't have all the bells and whistles you'd expect from someone like NG or Gemini. You're going to have relatively ordinary printing, relatively simple molds, older style, cradle mounts, no aerials, no rolling gear, that kind of thing. Okay, so you've got to bear this in mind when you look at these, and I'm being told that in the future, if Jet Hut make models, they will be in the price range of $15 or so, which is pretty much what I was able to acquire these models for. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get on and start having a look at some of these Jet Hut stroke JAL Collection Agostini molds. Now in this review we're going to be taking a look at the JAL Collection Agostini Boeing 747-100. In this case it's in the colours of Japan Asia Airways, but we're not going to look at delivery too much. We're going to focus on the mould itself. And what we kind of have here really is a basic 747 which shares many affinities with some of the earliest 400 scale releases. There's a whole load of classic 747 moulds which look broadly similar to this in the sense that they have the seam in almost exactly the same kind of position, and they don't have rolling gear or aerials. So it does look broadly similar to some of these old early blue box Gemini molds from the early 2000s. Having said that, in other ways it's not quite as nice as those, and I have to admit that when I first saw JAL Collection models, the 747 was one of the ones I saw, and I thought, yeah, this doesn't really look that good, and it's not something I'm likely to be getting hold of. So, why do I think that? Well, let's take a closer look at the mold, shall we? So, the first thing you'll notice about this entire model, and I just have to say it, is that the printing isn't great, in the sense like it's all too high. So you have to kind of avoid and ignore the printing. The windows here are too high, the cheat line's too high, everything's too high. So ignore that and just look at the shape. Now the shape isn't actually too bad, and it's certainly a very solid mould, which is quite good. And unusually for JAL Collection, this one actually has a metal tailplane, not plastic. But if we come to the front and start there, then what we have to start with is a decent but not spectacularly good nose area here. I think that the shape is fine across the hump and down here, but I think that from the side, the underside of the nose here is not going up at quite the right angle, and I think the nose is too rounded, not pointy enough for a 747. So I don't love the shape of the nose. Having said that, it's certainly no train wreck, and arguably it's still better than what Phoenix are producing on their 747s. Now the nose gear is actually not too bad. The gear wheel here is not too too large in comparison to some of the molds. These things are okay, maybe slightly too big, but it's not really too much of a problem. And so I think it's really just the angle here, which I'm not a big fan of. Moving down to the middle, then we have obviously the seam, which looks almost exactly the same as a whole variety of other molds, as I've already mentioned. And we've also got this engine pylon wing joint here, which again is actually very similar to the sort of thing you got on old Gemini, old Big Bird molds dating from the early 2000s. It's actually not very nice, but it's broadly similar. So I can't really get too upset with it when I can accept it on other molds that are older and cost more money. The engines actually aren't too bad. They're quite nicely shaped, as you can see, but one thing they haven't done really is change the shape of the pylons. So the pylon here should not be the same as the pylon on the inside. And you can see again, when you look underneath, that we've got decent but not spectacular undercarriage, which actually is a little bit chunky, especially from the front. Not as nice as it might be. And unlike most 747s, these ones don't move at all. Most 747 molds enable you to move those up and down. I guess I can forgive that. The rest of the wings aren't too bad. You can see they've got good flap detailing. And again, on the underside, it's not looking too bad at all. I think that's looking quite good. And if you come to the rear of the fuselage, then again, broadly it's looking okay. The tail shape is good. It doesn't have a free rudder, but it's not too surprising. It's a cheap mold. It's got a decent shape here at the tail cone. One thing that does slightly annoy me is the angle of these horizontal stabs, which you can see are rather pointy in terms of, they've got too much dihedral. They're pointing upwards there. That is not accurate for a 747. And it's also something that I've seen on some of their other molds too. From the front, yeah, it looks okay. Obviously the cheat line printing is completely out of whack, but the mold itself, it looks kind of like the sort of 747 you might have got, right at the dawn of 400 scale, 2000, something like that. 2005 maybe. It's not dreadful, but it is not really great either. So it is certainly not one of my favourite jet hut molds. Having said that, what would the score be for this 747? I think if I was going to score this model, then I'd probably have to, look at it and I'd have to give it something like a 5 maybe. It's not a point off for the nose. Obviously the undercarriage a little bit chunky. We've got the seam on the wing. We've got the engine pylon joint, and we've got these vertical stabs which are sticking up a bit too much. It still looks like a 747 though, and as I said earlier, arguably I actually prefer it to what Phoenix produce on their 747s, because it at least gets some of the fundamentals right. So it's not a model that I'm necessarily going to be super pleased to be adding to my collection, but at the same time, if you're looking for cheap 747s, and I know lots of 747 molds are incredibly expensive, then yeah, maybe it's an option. Certainly if they can get the printing slightly better and they can maybe just modify a couple of the features here, then they've got something which isn't bad considering the price. So that's another one of these JAL Collection molds looked at in a nutshell. Again, it's not great, but at the same time, it's not shockingly awful either. And considering the model cost me, I think it was probably like 99 renminbi, which is 15 bucks or so. It's cheap. So that's another one of these models looked at. Check me out on my other channels if you like the video. Obviously subscribe. See me at Instagram at Airlines, Facebook too. Check out the website, and I'll be producing more of these JAL Collection quick review videos, just to give you an overall kind of view of what it is that the JAL Collection has been producing and what it is Jet Hut might end up making themselves. Thanks very much for watching, guys. See you later.